Feastables is a chocolate bar in the US that was founded by one of the most popular and successful YouTubers in the world, Mr. Beast. And due to his decade-long branding, when the chocolate bar launched in 2022, it generated over $10 million just in its first few months. Many taste tests across YouTube have shown its superiority, but does this come with a cost to our health? In this video, I'm going to look at the health effects of this chocolate bar, but more specifically, I want to compare it to another common chocolate bar in the UK, and that is the Cadburys Diary Milk chocolate. And when I was looking into the Feastables chocolate bar, the health impacts of this did actually surprise me. So we're going to explore this in this video and make sure you stick to the end to find out which one I think tastes better, because obviously taste is also important. Let's begin. Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Dr. Steven and thank you again for joining. Today we're going to be looking at the Feastables chocolate bar that was launched in 2022. Mr. Beast is somebody that I've been following for quite some years now. I've always been really interested in his dedication and obsession to YouTube. He's done phenomenally well with the amount of views and subscribers he's accumulated over the years, with over 200 million subscribers. So I was very interested when he released the Feastables chocolate last year in January 2022, and he certainly did it in style with a Charlie and the Chocolate Factory themed launch, where he basically put a golden ticket in 10 of the Feastable bars.
10 random bars are going to have a mystery ticket inside of them, and if you get this mystery ticket, we will fly you out to compete for a chocolate factory in one of our videos.
When he released them, and essentially, like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, those that found a ticket were then invited to his factory, where they would then compete for prizes, with the biggest prize being to win the chocolate factory itself, as in the books and the films. Just a few months after its launch, it's accumulated over $10 million of revenue, which is absolutely insane, but actually not that surprising given his following on YouTube. And many of the videos online showed how this was superior in taste to a lot of the other chocolate bars, which I thought was very interesting, and obviously he's done very well on that aspect. So the question I was then asking is, has he done it in a healthy way, or are there a lot of synthetic and unhealthy ingredients in here that maybe it should be a reason why we should be avoiding it? So in the US, this is very prevalent. It's in all the Walmarts and loads of other places. In the UK, it's not quite as established as you can probably imagine. So in the UK, I think you can buy it from Asda and Spar shops, and you can order online. I ordered this online and it cost me £6.99. So it was a very expensive chocolate bar. I'm just going to put that down to the fact that it's not established yet that well in the UK. But if this was the going price, I certainly wouldn't be buying this on a regular basis at all, unless it tastes absolutely amazing, considering that this dairy milk cost me £1.35. So to start with, I'm going to give Dairy Milk, Cadbury's, I'm going to give them 1 point to start with if we're going to be comparing here. So Feastables comes in different flavors. This is the original, and originally there were 3 different flavors. Now there are 8. So we've got the original, which is a darker type of chocolate. We got sea salt, quinoa crunch, milk chocolate crunch, these nuts, almond, and cookies and cream. So quite a variety. Now, when I looked into this, Mr. Beast's mission was, unsurprisingly, to create a chocolate bar that was sustainable. This is not surprising just because of the videos I've seen him do on planting 20 million trees and cleaning up dirty beaches. What did surprise me is that he also went out to create a chocolate bar that was of quality, and I think this came from the fact that he suffered with Crohn's disease as a kid, and so he wanted to produce something that was of quality and that was generally healthy. So the question is, does it actually stack up to what his mission was and what he's actually saying? To begin with, I do have to say that 95% of chocolate out there is not really that healthy. However, the cocoa bean itself is healthy because it's got a lot of health benefits. But the problem is that to make it taste really, really great, most often, you have to pack it full of unhealthy ingredients like sugar. Cocoa is generally quite bitter, so you have to put a lot of sugar in there to then make it sweet. So if you don't like bitter things, then you're going to usually prefer the ones that have more sugar in, which is usually the milky type of chocolate, which tends to have less of the cocoa in. I'm not going to necessarily say that this is going to be an overall healthy snack. I'll be very surprised if this is something that is really positive for your body. However, as far as snacks go and chocolate and sugar, the question is it better than most of the other chocolate out there? And if you're going to choose one, should you choose this one if you're trying to be a bit more healthy? The first thing then to be able to see whether it's healthy is to look at the ingredients. And the first thing I noticed is that on the front here, they're bragging about how they only have 4 ingredients in here. I do like that, and I like that for 2 reasons. Firstly, because the less ingredients you tend to have in a product, usually the more healthy it's going to be. For example, a carrot is 1 ingredient, is a whole food, therefore very healthy. If it's got a list of 20 ingredients and it looks like a chemistry list, generally that's going to be not that great because our bodies aren't really designed to take in food like that. But I also like how they're bragging about it because you can tell they're trying to show you that they are healthy and they are focusing on that aspect and not just coincidentally being healthy. So when we look at dairy milk, this one has around 7 ingredients. So I'm going to have to give Feastables a point on this one. So we got 1 to Feastables and 1 to dairy milk. Now when we look at the ingredients itself on Feastables, the first thing that is very, very obvious that stands out very quickly is that almost all of their ingredients is organic. And that's definitely a good thing. That generally means it's going to be more healthy. Not always, but generally, because to be able to call themselves organic, they have to be using pesticides and fertilizers that aren't man-made, so they have to be generally more natural, so they're generally more limited as to what they're allowed to use when they're growing the beans or whatever that they're growing. The Department for Agriculture and Rural Affairs states that organic food is a product of a farming system which avoids the use of man-made fertilizers, pesticides, growth regulators, and livestock feed additives. Irradiation and the use of genetically modified organisms, as GMOs, our products produced from or by GMOs are generally prohibited by organic legislation. So for them to be able to call it organic, they are limited to be able to generally use more natural pesticides and fertilizers, which is going to make it more healthy. There are many studies looking at this. So one study here where they looked at synthetic artificial pesticides and association for the workers themselves, those that were spraying it, they saw an association with more cancer, more neurological disease. Another paper here looked at synthetic versus natural pesticides, and they generally saw an association with worse health with those that were using synthetic. When we look at dairy milk, there is no mention at all of organic, so chances are to cut costs, they're going to be using more synthetic pesticides and fertilizers. It doesn't necessarily mean that that's the case if it doesn't say organic, but we can't really be certain, so chances are that they're going to be using cheaper fertilizers and pesticides. So for that reason, Feastables is going to get 2 points and dairy milk is going to be on 1. Now the next thing we're going to look at is sugar, because out of all the macronutrients that we should look at in regards to health, the sugar has one of the strongest correlations or associations with more disease and more mortality. So we ideally want to have less sugar, and particularly the refined type of sugar. So when we have a look at Feastables, this is quite incredible because Feastables here has 13.6 grams per 100 grams of sugar. So that's around just over 13% of the chocolate is sugar. When we have a look at dairy milk, this one has 56 grams. So we're over 50% of this chocolate is in sugar. That is over 4 times more in this one than in this one. So I'm going to have to give Feastables another point. So now we're on 3 points for Feastables and 1 for dairy milk. Now the other thing which I briefly mentioned earlier is the amount of cocoa in the chocolate, and I said that the more cocoa generally is going to be better because there's more health benefits to cocoa and they're not going to be packing it full of unhealthy ingredients. The amount of cocoa in Feastables is 56%. That's pretty good. But in here, it doesn't actually say. So when I went online, it said anywhere between 35 and 55%, which I found a little bit unusual. Not entirely sure the reason for that, but wherever it is in that range, it's still going to be less than what's in here. Now, of course, this is a slightly darker, they do actually say this is a dark chocolate at the back, not at the front, and this is a milk chocolate, but I am going to have to give Feastables another point, so we're on 4 for Feastables and 1 for Dairy Milk. Now the next thing we'll look at is the emulsifier, because with the chocolate, because it's got oils and water, you need something to be able to keep those ingredients combined and together, otherwise they naturally start to separate. Now with Feastables, what they use is sunflower lactohen, which is a more natural emulsifier when we compare it to Dairy Milk. Dairy Milk, they use E numbers. So specifically, we've got E442 and E476, which is an artificial emulsifier and generally associated with less health benefits compared to the sunflower lactohen that is in this one. So for that reason, I'm going to have to give Feastables yet another point. From 5 for Feastables and then 1 for Cadburys. Now, what really did amaze me about Feastables, and it's not the case with this one, but it is for all their milk chocolates, is the type of milk that they use. And I haven't seen this really in many other chocolate bars, is that they use milk from grass-fed cows as opposed to grain-fed cows. Grass-fed cows are generally considered more healthy, and one of the biggest advantages of getting milk from grass-fed is that it's more nutritious. So one of the prime examples is that they have a better ratio of omega-3 to omega-6 compared to grain-fed, because the cow is just generally getting better food, better nutrition, so the milk is going to be better. So here they have grass-fed, I mean not in this one but in the milk products, whereas in the dairy milk they don't actually say anything, so I can only assume, for again cost reasons, that it's going to be probably grain-fed. It's not necessarily always going to be grain-fed if it doesn't say. But if it was grass-fed, I think they would say, because it is a health benefit that they can then brag about, which helps with their marketing. So I have to give another point to Feastables. So now we're on 6 for Feastables and only 1 for Cadburys. The next thing we'll look at is more the environmental and the fair pay aspect in regards to making the chocolate. Feastables are part of what they call the Rainforest Alliance, which is very similar to fair trade. It's just that they have a slightly different approach to addressing the same type of issue. So that is a very good thing. So they have sustainable sourcing and fair pay, particularly for the farmers. Now the Cadburys, they are fair trade. So pretty much, as far as I understand, in regards to fair trade and the Rainforest Alliance, quite similar. So I'm gonna have to give a point to both. So we're on 6 for Feastables and 2 for Cadburys. And then next we've got Allergies. Feastables, what I like about them is that when they haven't needed to put the ingredient in, they've made sure it's not in there at all. So for example, gluten, there's no gluten. So I'm pretty certain that they can claim that they are gluten-free. Whereas for Cadburys, they actually say that there may be traces of gluten. Yes, traces of gluten and of nuts. And in regards to lactose, they can also claim they're lactose free, whereas Cadburys, obviously they're milk, so they're going to have milk in. But the milk ones for Feastables, obviously are going to have milk. But as before, I like how when they don't have milk in, that they try to avoid having lactose so that they can cater for more people, either lactose free or gluten free. So I would give a point in that regard for Feastables, another point for them, 7 for Feastables and 2 for Cadburys. So in conclusion, for the health aspect, Feastables definitely comes out on top, and I think they've done a phenomenal job at making a good quality and healthy snack, and one that is seemingly good for the environment in regards to their sourcing and fair paid, etc. Dairy Milk have also got the fair trade, but they definitely haven't really considered the health aspect. So Feastables definitely comes up on top in regards to that. But the question is, which one tastes better? Because if this doesn't taste very good, then you're not really gonna bother eating it, because it's not exactly a superfood, so you may as well eat something else. So let me see what it tastes like. Oh, okay, it's not easy to open. Let me see. There we go. I wanted to do this blind, but I just don't think I can do it without knowing, just because of the texture, well, basically the shape is different. So annoyingly, this actually came slightly broken, but let's see what it tastes like. Yeah, very good. So it's definitely a darker chocolate. I know what dairy tastes like. I will compare it, but it is a darker chocolate, so I'm not gonna lie, it's gonna be harder to be able to compare it, but you can tell it's not cheap. It's got some depth to it, and it tastes like a good quality chocolate. And I really like that, because some chocolate can be too sweet, and that makes sense because they've only got 13 grams for 100 grams of sugar, so that's really good. That's kind of what I expected, I suppose. So let's see what the dairy milk tastes like. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I really like that. It's hard to compare because it's a milk chocolate. It's got more sugar in, it is more sweet. I like both of them. I would tend to go for the darker chocolate. I do like darker chocolate, but sometimes I like this one. I would think I could eat more of the Feastables, probably just because it's not as sweet, whereas this one is quite sweet, so it can kind of get sickly quite easily. So I'll give a point for both, to be honest, because I could enjoy both of them. I can't really put one above the other in regards to taste. I think they're both quite good quality. So we've got 8 for Feastables and we've got 3 for dairy milk. So we got a clear winner of Feastables. So if this was the same price and it was prevalent in the UK, I would certainly buy this one more often than this one. Having said that, I can't say I have chocolate that often as a snack. I tend to not snack, if you see in one of my videos in the past. When I do have chocolate, I tend to have this one here, which is 85% cocoa, which is generally much more healthy. It's also organic, and I have this with my breakfast. I also have it in a small amount. So I always say, if you want to go for a really healthy chocolate, then go for high percentage. So in conclusion, well done, Mr. Beast. I think you've done a very good job. Feastables, I would say, is a nice chocolate, and I just love how you've really looked into the health aspects. Now, if you found that interesting, I have gone deeper into the benefits of chocolate, particularly darker chocolate, and the health impacts that can have, and maybe some reasons to have it on a moderate to regular basis. If you want to see that, and I highly recommend you check out my video that you can check out here, and I will see you either on that video or on my next one. Have a great rest of your day. Bye bye.